Welcome back to Caffeine Confessionals. My name is Allan and We are here to talk about the Challenge All Stars 5 Rivals, episode 10. I'm joined by my lovely Southern co host, Luke Muncie.
What's up, guys?
Unfortunately, our lovely Vermontian co host, Zoe Trimboli, is busy at work right now. We miss her a lot, especially in like an episode like this where she lost a loved one.
Right.
We're down to 10 teams. This is the penultimate episode before the final. Do you know if the final is going to be one or two parts?
It's going to be two parts, unfortunately.
Ooh, I don't think this is the type of finalist group to have a two-part final.
I only say that because I think Mark Long said 12 episodes this season. I'd love if I am wrong, but I think it's two parts.
If they said it was like a two-part episode and they just gave us like a 90-minute episode next week, maybe that would be perfect.
That would be ideal. This has been a fun enough season for me. I'm not going to complain like the end of 40, but I think it's important to know when to wrap it up. And I think next week would be the perfect time to wrap it up.
Yeah, and it's not even I like this episode. I've liked this season so far. It's just that, finals are often bad. Like just not even like the word like if you go through the history of challenge finals, I would say 80% of them are bad.
Yeah. And they get hyped up so much by the competitors, and I guess even us as the fans, but realistically, it's because you've reached that penultimate step to becoming a champ. It's really not that it's like this masterclass in skills. It's like, what are we going to throw at them that they're randomly going to do for a little bit?
I've tried to make the top 10 worst finals blogs ever before. And it's really tough because so many of them are bad in different ways. Because you have okay, this one's bad because it was just logistically flawed. This one was bad because it was too easy, or this one was bad because it completely erased everything they did the first day one of the final. And there's just so many different ways you can go wrong in the final and so little ways you can go right. And with a format like this where we have all these unbalanced pairs, it's really hard to balance it out.
Yeah, for sure. I say I know, and you're right, because I almost said bring back the checkpoints, but for these imbalanced pairs, it's that gives one team a huge advantage over the others. But I think that's when the challenge hits the sweet spot, is when it's a checkpoint that does not stop. And if it goes overnight, there's still a factor that goes in with the time that's not 30 seconds.
It's really hard to hit that middle ground. This was never a fair season to begin with, so to get a fair final, I don't know. We still have to see it as well because we haven't even seen the final yet. We got to talk about the episode we have before us right now. Let's just jump straight into the daily challenge. Right?
Yeah, completely. I can take it away.
No, I mean, yeah, you can take it away.
So I liked the daily challenge because there were high stakes. Obviously, these people want to protect their stars by coming in first, but if you're Nani and Turbo, who lost her star the week before by means of Melissa and Nicole taking it, you really have to win it to throw yourself in. Or a caveat I think we'll talk about later that wasn't addressed on the show. But I thought that was a good puzzle that required just mental fortitude, some athleticism, some skill, and then obviously a puzzle. So they had to go from mat to mat holding these cylindrical pegs together or just pieces together. And at each stop, they had to put them together until they ultimately had 10 pieces that they carried to the finish line and then constructed a puzzle with out of these pieces on a totem pole, I guess, or a pole.
Yeah, it reminded me of one of those party games you play when you're like, oh, hey, we have to transfer these dice with our nose with each other, except it's way more physical, required a lot of teamwork, which I think on a season like this, Rivals, teamwork is such a big thing. It's can these two people coexist? So it being the final daily challenge made sense a lot to me.
Yeah, I agree. It reminded me of that old show from 2008, Minute to Win It. Just
yeah, and I've played some of those reality TV games online where you play a lot of those Minute to Win It type games. They get intense.
Yep.
That's a show that they should bring it back.
Yeah, just easy, probably super simple to produce. Yeah. But you're right. This did bring out some of the dynamics. I know we're going to talk about it all throughout the podcast today, but it was interesting to see the people who I felt have worked well together for the most part all season kind of mess it up. And then people who you've been praising all season bring it home.
Yeah, let's jump into the teams that struggled at first. Shane and Devon were not doing the best, and Shane was yelling at Devon repeatedly, and so much so that other people on the cast were literally like, "Yo, Shane, calm down."
And I hate it because I've been defending Shane. Like I've been very like pro Shane this season, and like, ooh, Frank is like the antithesis of like what I want as a winner. Great TV, as we said. Like I'm not knocking that, but it does validate some of the things that he said, that Frank has said about Shane, because it's like, I get it's high pressure. This whole game is a pressure cooker, and this being the last one, and Shane's never made a final. Like he wants to win this. Him and Devon have a great shot. But even with those factors, you're not going to win the show by being a horrible partner. And Devon never lost her cool. She was trying to be calm with him. She was trying to like meet him where he was at and who he is as a person. And it's like no matter what she did, he just was pissed.
I'm a big Shane defender too, especially when it comes to daily challenges, because I think he is an excellent strategist when it comes to these dailies. Like I think
Yeah.
of Invasion when there was the challenge where they had to hang onto the ropes, and he's like, I'm just gonna kamikaze myself into 3 people and knock out their entire team. Like he comes up with strategies like that are like really smart. Um, this daily challenge though, he was just an asshole, plain and simple.
And it makes me think about this season as a whole in a different way, because I know that he has said that his strategy was to tell people that he was on one side, Devon was on the other. Like he could scapegoat Devon to appease his OG friends, which I get, it's a good strategy. But it's like, is there still some resentment there towards Devon because you're acting like it? Like the show's over. You don't have to pick and choose alliances now. Like you just have to either win this daily or hope you don't get thrown in. And the writing's on the wall. They probably weren't going to be thrown in anyways because there's 2 really standout teams left.
With Shane, the lines blur so much because he's able to lie like with a smile on his face, but have conviction with it.
Yeah.
And it's you almost like you don't even know who's talking at certain points. It makes him a really good reality TV character, but in terms of like, can you trust this narrator? I don't even know.
Yeah. And I love an unreliable narrator. That's true. But it's what's interesting about the challenge is like we get to see it and then hear these people's perspectives in their confessionals afterwards. And a lot of times, months afterwards in podcasts where they can have months to construct their narrative. So it is interesting. I love him on the screen, but if we just like look at this isolated experience, it was not great at all for him.
And you know what? Credit to Devon for staying cool. Like again, like you mentioned it already. Like because years ago she would have been upset, and she actually had right to be upset here in this moment right now. She kept it cool, and they even they struggled in the daily challenge. But they were still doing better than teams like Melissa and Nicole, I believe.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I think Devon, like, I will admit, I'm happy that she is like knee deep, neck deep in like her religious convictions. Like, I'm not even saying that shadily. Like, I actually mean that. Like, I love that for her. I love when people find a passion in life. It does change how she is as a reality TV character, I believe. But I also think that she has gone on a string of shows even since the challenge where she's fallen short. Most recently, The GOAT. I'm not sure. I think you watched it, but
No, I did
like,
not watch the go. I'm sorry.
well, Devon should have won. Like, and it's like it's obvious, but it was a bitter jury type situation. And I think that she's like, you know what? This is likely one of the last things I've got in me for now, at least. I mean, I'm sure we'll see her again in the future, but let me just keep my composure so we can win this show and I can have something to hang my hat on.
Yeah, and you mentioned before, like Shane's never been to a final, Devon's never been to a final. Them getting there would be a really big moment for each of them.
Yeah.
Mentioned them already before. Melissa and Nicole, really bad during this daily challenge, but they've been bad in every daily challenge this season.
Just not the brightest bunch of ladies, to put it bluntly.
They are the layups of this cast. Yeah. Then in terms of other teams, Turbo and Nani were doing okay. Adam and Steve were doing okay. But they got blown out of the water by Sam and Frank. And the funniest part is like Turbo had a confession like, what the hell? How are Sam and Frank beating us so badly? And then it cuts to another confession where Frank is like, I don't know how we're doing it either, folks.
I think that this season has been a confidence boost for Sam in a lot of ways because, like, her athleticism, well, her not athleticism, but her physicality from episode 1 to now is completely different. And I mean, they've not been there that long. It's not like she's been hitting the gym and like she's miraculously like this athlete, but I think that her and Frank needed the time to like get their partnership back to where it was years ago, or at least like get that bond strengthened. And they're killing it. She's killing it.
Yeah, and talking about this daily challenge, like I'm not saying that there's like a certain rhythm or rhyme, but when I was watching them, Sam was like her size was an advantage because she was just a really strong base. It felt like Frank could put the puzzles anywhere and she could just be that base for them. It was like she was like a softball catcher, like just behind the plate, just like holding those bricks. And it was like it's no shade. It was just like her
Yeah.
body in this daily challenge actually was an advantage.
No, I agree. And I think Frank wants to win badly, and that is clearly working to his benefit this season in many different ways.
Yeah, and he's such a good competitor that he can be flexible in what he does physically. Like, while he is definitely a stubborn human and can be very aggressive when it comes to the actual like aspect of the game physically, he's like, oh, swim 3 miles, carry 250 pounds, climb up some rope. Like, I can do any of all of those things as long as my partner can hold up their part of the bargain. And because of that, they're a strong pair. You know what? Frank is not yelling at Sam to be what he wants. He's accommodating to Sam, and it's working out well for them.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I was a little bit bummed because Nani and Turbo were close. I mean, I wouldn't say like that, like, the power of editing made it look closer than it likely was, but I would have liked to have seen them done that because I don't know when the right time to bring this up is because it was not mentioned in the episode. But the big emphasis for this daily was that Nani and Turbo had to win to throw themselves in. But I had to think if they had won and not thrown themselves in, it would have been 2 star holders against each other, and then there would have been 1 star for grabs. Would it then be you're the last team left, you get it, or like would they just be out too?
I think we're gonna have to just find out from production at one point because there's no real way to find that out. I would assume that they get purged out, but I wouldn't be shocked if they just gave it to them either.
Right.
Especially because they probably want 4 teams in the final because the way they do these finals nowadays, it's always at least 4 teams or 4 players.
Yeah.
Sam and Frank get the win. Sam 2 daily challenge wins under her belt this season, and they got a star, and they have the power. Um, but before we move on to that, let's talk about the house vote. And Turbo and Nani beg everyone, hey, please throw us into elimination. Just give us a chance to fight for the star. We don't care who we face. And a lot of these teams, like as we mentioned before, like they could theoretically just ice them out and be like, you know what, Turbo and Nani, you're not going to the final. And we're gonna fight between us here. Those teams are just scared for their own lives in the game, so they just all vote in Turbo and Nani because you know what? Better keep us safe than maybe potentially raise our chances of winning.
Yeah, I agree because with such a small group, if you proposed anything else, it would have gotten out. It could have like flipped you going in, and like you essentially, if you're in the house, know who Frank and Sam as the winners should put in. So like if you're a team that's not the team that should be put in, why would you ever vote any other way? I mean, you just basically solidify. I'm going to the final. I vote Nani and Turbo.
Yeah, I mean the idea of voting in any other team than Nine Turbo, it's an idea that makes sense if you're not in the game itself. Once you're in the game, you're like, no, it's my survival comes first.
Yep.
So everyone votes in Nani and Turbo, and now it becomes a question of what are Frank and Sam going to do with this power? Let's talk first about Melissa and Nicole, and they were very paranoid that they were going to get thrown in because they took Turbo and Nani Star. That was never going to happen.
No, they are a non-factor. Like they're going to the final. Like there's no spoiler here. They're going to the final. They're not going to win. Like
No, yeah, we've seen them compete. We've seen them compete all season. Their best accomplishment was barely beating Franca and Katie in an elimination. And other than that, they've had a lot of really bad performances that prove they don't have the puzzle skills to win a final.
Yeah. They're just dumb. Like that's not even a subjective opinion. Like they're just not the brightest.
Yeah. They did give us some on-screen presence though, including a workout scene between Nicole and Melissa, where they got very close. We're testing each other's flexibilities. Transparently, like
It was okay, so it was just bad. I mean, that coupled with them like kissing last week, like they said some odd things to one another, and it was just strange. Like everybody knows we're very touchy feely. Everybody knows that. Like, or are y'all just doing too much? Uh, and the irony of it all is that last week before Veronica left, or maybe 2 weeks ago, but I think it was last week, she warned Nicole, like, you have a girlfriend at home. Be very cautious of how this might look, and stop cheating. Because, I guess working out doesn't constitute as cheating, but y'all kissed.
well, I mean, working out, but also the way they were working out. Look, there are adult videos out there that look less realistic than whatever the fuck they were doing in that
It,
workout right then and there.
it was pure insanity, and production is very shady because we also got a phone call to Nicole's girlfriend, fiance. I can't remember exactly the title, but the worst part of it all is Nicole calls this girl with Melissa sitting there. That is so tasteless. And I'm going to go a little hard on this because I know if Zoe were here, she for sure would. Because Nicole is a scumbag. You are cheating on your girlfriend and you know this. And it is her business, whatever like guidelines she had before going in. But it doesn't seem like it was just like, hey, this is an open book. And when Melissa says to the girlfriend, I've heard so much about you, and the girlfriend says, I have too, and there's that awkward silence, it's like, yeah, I know that you've hooked up with my girlfriend before. It's been televised. I know you were partners. She's got some trepidation. And like, how does Nicole plan to explain that when she gets home, if she even plans on staying with this girl?
Look, I'm in the mindset of back on Final Reckoning, when Amanda called out Zach for being on Bumble. I've always said that being on Bumble is worse than drunkenly kissing someone because to download the app and then actively swipe on people, it's like there takes much more thought than that, than like a drunken mistake. Which,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a whole thing. So what Nicole is doing here, Melissa, to me, it's very much in that same realm of like, no, that is very much cheating what you're doing on your fiance. At the same time, you're talking about on the phone or like in your confessionals, the idea of like IVF injections and being this person you could settle down with all the while you're cheating on your girlfriend. And if you don't know, you're dumb. We also know you're dumb. It's a whole mess. And I'm just Zoe said it last week. Nicole has to like stop pretending she can commit to monogamy because she clearly can't.
Well, and I think the second people are honest about that, they will be much happier in their lives. Like, and I'm not saying that's for everybody, by the way. I don't think I'm like being crazy here, but there are so many people like Nicole who want to have somebody for companionship, but also want to do everything else in the world. And maybe you need to be honest with yourself that maybe you just need some friends and live a different type of life because clearly this girl cannot keep one girlfriend.
And the worst part is she's someone who also loves like the ownership role of having someone as their girlfriend and stuff like that, all while still cheating and everything. I don't know. I don't like Nicole. Nobody on this podcast likes Nicole. If you like Nicole and you're watching this YouTube video podcast, why at this point?
I started Invasion last week, like with a friend of mine, and they really were into Nicole. Like Nicole was I'm like, a great what? Like a great personality for TV. And I'm like, I don't even know if I'd go that far. And I can be very unbiased about people who I dislike as like people, but understand their role in TV. Johnny Bananas. Don't go in the comments and say, y'all hate him. I think he's obnoxious, but he's good for the show in a lot of ways. But Nicole's not even like that.
It is one of those strange things where she does check a lot of boxes you want in a reality TV star, but she's just not clicking anyway.
Right.
Moving on from Nicole and Melissa, though, then we had Shane and Devon, who were worried that Frank and Sam were going to put them in. Why? Because Shane and Frank fucking hate each other. So that actually was a fair reason.
Yeah. So like as a viewer, I was like, I don't get this paranoia. It's clearly going to be, who they throw in, but it does make sense. They do not like each other, and I think Shane gave all the leverage for them to do it anyways. We didn't speak about this, but like it got to the point in the daily that Steve, who has been friends with Shane for a very long time, 2 decades, like had to step in and be like, hey, let's calm this down, let's chill this out. Like, I think maybe you need to apologize. And Shane stormed off. What I like about Shane, because we saw this with him and Devon, they were able to have a conversation together and they were able to clear the air a little bit. But I think what's important, and there's not really a need to talk about the like, I know we're going to talk about another thing that happened at the club, but with Shane and Devon the night before, Devon was in Frank's ear saying some bad stuff about Shane. You know, it's been teased the past 4 weeks, Devon saying, I have a partner who thinks it's cool to be a villain on reality TV. We finally got it tonight. And at first I was like, she's throwing Shane under the bus, which I did not like. But I also took it as she's trying to build any type of leverage with Frank to pity her, to then not throw her and Shane in. How did you see it? Because I could have totally read too much into it.
I think it was kind of what you're hinting at before of their strategy of kind of playing the middle a bit times, where
Mhm.
like they could kind of like scapegoat each other and be like, oh, Devon feels this way, Shane feels this way. But there is also a level of truth that they're speaking when they are kind of like when she is talking about Shane, she is helping her game, but she is speaking honestly on her feelings with Shane because that's how she does feel.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it causes Shane to spiral where he threatens to quit and like, get those cameras out of my face. And then in their conversation later, and I'm scared about people's reception of this, Devon was like, if you really want to win, why'd you threaten to quit? And he's like, oh, I just want to make good TV. He was joking, like when he said that, but I'm afraid people would be like, oh my gosh, Shane's trying to manufacture storylines. No, that man wanted to quit in that moment. Like
Shane's a mess.
one thing about him and Ashley both, if they want to quit and you gave them their bag and said, okay, you can quit now, they would say yes without thinking. I'm glad that production doesn't do that so often anymore. But yeah, he's a mess. A lovely mess, but a mess.
I don't even know about lovely. I could say entertaining. I don't know. I love Shane so much, but to call him a lovely mess, it's like it's kind of he's a
Yeah.
menace at times.
Yeah.
I do remember back in the day that Shane had a confessional, not confessional. He did a podcast and he talked about how he told the production member, "I will start a fight with anyone you want right now if you give me a Diet Coke."
Well, sounds like you, Allan, before
No,
this podcast
that's
said
literally
he's
me in my shoes right now, and it's just I heard that and I'm like I've never related more to someone.
yeah. But I mean, great cast member for a show like this.
And I'm glad that we're finally getting him and Shane and Devon, like, because we didn't for 6 weeks. Even 10 weeks further, we talked about before. Devon has not been Devon that she has been in past seasons, and this season's been underwhelming. I mean, I'm really happy that they're going to go to the final, but it's still like, from what I expected the two to what we've gotten, still not quite lived up to expectations. Maybe that's my fault for having high expectations.
Yeah, I don't disagree that like I did expect more, but part of me wants to think I don't think the editing this season's been bad, but it's definitely been very uh patterned. Because we said early on, like you can tell who's leaving by who gets a lot of like the camera time. And maybe because they weren't in jeopardy, we weren't seeing what was happening behind the scenes. But yeah, I mean, even with that, I think that MTV sees Devon as a priority in many aspects. The challenge specifically as a show does, and we've not seen much with her. So I'm glad we're finally getting that. And she was a little bit messy at the bar, and I appreciated that.
Very much so. We then also had Steve and Adam, who, spoiler, were the team who got voted in by
Mm-hmm.
Frank and Sam. They were okay. So Adam, because he'd been working with Frank since the past few weeks when Veronica and Frank got really close because they were close with Veronica. Whatever, they were together as alliance. Adam thought that Frank would keep them safe this time around. Steve was pretty smart about the situation because he could read the tea leaves.
Right. Well, okay, and let's be realistic. They know the final is the next thing. That's not an evil, dastardly move. Like that's the move you have to make.
Which we also had a scene where Adam went to Steve. He's like, "So are you gonna finally apologize to me for stealing the star?" And Steve's like, "To apologize, there had to be something I feel bad about," and I just still don't. Because it's a game, Adam had thrown him into multiple eliminations, and Steve stole the star because you know what? Don't throw me in again because you're supposed to be my friend, and you're a big threat in the final. You probably would have beat Cara, Maria, and Laurel, and left me looking like in third, fourth place because Adam is a great player. He is a threat. So Steve's like, I got nothing to apologize for. And it's also why Steve knows they're going to be the vote going in and Adam doesn't.
Yeah, I'm glad that he was that honest about it because I hate things like that where I hate to bring it up, but it reminds me of Sarah and Bananas. Like when Sarah threw in Bananas and Nani, it was part of the game to better her game. When Bananas and Sarah played, they were partners. I can even defend a little bit him stealing the money, not because of what she did, but because it was a chance to get money. Like, and that's the situation here. Why would Steve keep Adam safe if Adam would have beat him last season? And why should he have to apologize for it now? And in this moment, why would Steve or not Steve Adam expect Frank to keep him safe when they're the best team in the house?
Yeah, if anything, like Adam should thank Steve for stealing that star because now they're rivals pairs and they're a really strong team together. And also, he doesn't have to say sorry because he threw him into elimination. So it's a whole mixed bag. And Adam did have an opportunity to win a final star against Derek in that daily challenge and lost.
Yeah, it's true.
So sorry, Adam. Steve was right, and Steve was also right that Frank and Sam were going to throw them in. And Frank and Sam, that's a great move because you put Turbo and Nani against, Frank and against Steve and Adam. They're the two strongest teams in the game. They're the two biggest threats in the final, and one of them's off the board. Would this have been a better move last week? Yes, but doing it this week, still pretty good.
Well, yeah, and I think you're so right that last week would have made more sense because in my head, whoever wins this elimination has the best shot of winning the show. Like, and I know they've taken swings at all of them, but they've not taken swings with these two teams against each other up until this point where it might be too late.
And looking back, had Frank and Sam worked with the house to make this the move last week, it would have put them. Well, actually, they probably would have been able to make that move because Shane and Devon won.
Yeah, that's true.
And Shane and Devon probably would not have voted in Turbo and Nani against, or
That's
as
true.
Steve. Yeah, so great move by Frank though, and I think Frank is playing this game piece by piece. It's been right every way, every point along the way. I think.
Yeah, well, because at this point, like he doesn't have to hide that he thinks that he's controlled people all season. Like he gets to make the biggest power move at the end, and I don't know. I have to like sit on this season for a little bit to think about how I truly feel about Frank because he has played a good game. I'm never going to try to take that from him, and I think this was the best outcome for his resume for this season.
Was Frank a strong force on the vote against Ashley and Anissa? I think that was the one vote he probably wasn't that much like a thumb on.
Yeah, we didn't get much information on that. I saw a clip of Amber B on Zach Nichols' podcast where she said that she talked to Ashley about it before, but it was mostly because her and Fessy didn't trust Anissa. So it didn't seem like Frank had a hand in that. The rest
Which I'll
of them,
say, like, because when you're looking at the game, I would say, like, we were mad from a TV perspective that Kellyanne and Sylvie got taken out there, but that was probably the right move. You look at all these weeks, we're like, oh, Devon and Leroy got taken out. That was the right move. Setting up the game the way they did. It's been the right move, I think, every step of the way. That was the only week where I could point out, like, that probably the wrong team got voted in.
yeah.
But as a whole, they took all these shots at Steve and Adam. It's not like they never tried to take out Steve and Adam. They've taken 5 shots at them. So at a certain point, they're a very good team.
Yeah, for sure. The elimination.
The elimination. And this elimination sucked.
Yeah. Zoe messaged me and Allan and said, am I the only one that hates this elimination? And the answer is no. Here's the thing. This is a fun elimination if you have a John and Beth against Adam and Steve. It keeps it neutral, but we started off with Nani and Turbo on one side of a table and Steve and Adam on the other. In front of each of them were boxes. One by one, team by team, they would take turns opening their box and saying whether or not they had a star inside the box. They could lie. It was the other team's job to guess whether they were telling the truth or whether they were lying. The rule said you could only ask yes or no questions. You did not have to be honest in your answer, but you had to answer. Just BS. Okay, they go 5 rounds. However many you get correct, you get taken out of a pool of balls you have that they later have to transfer via sticks, like large chopsticks, to the other side of the arena and put in a container or a bin. It just felt lazy to me, and I'm going to keep rambling, so you go, because I've got lots to say about this.
Yeah, so here are my big issues with the elimination. The box game is just bullshit. Because you don't have to ask any questions. It's just a yes or no coin flip type thing. There really is no strategy to it. You can mess up. I mean, before anyone says like, oh no, you can tell someone was lying here or there. No, dude, it's a 50-50 chance regardless, like whether or not that star is in there or not. And then my issue really with the elimination is that it is kind of the same thing as the daily challenge. It's the exact same thing where it's just two teammates holding us holding something and carrying something together. So why are we testing the same exact skill set from the daily challenge as the elimination? I hate episodes that are like that. And for it to be the last elimination of the season is very underwhelming. Also, like I didn't mention this before, the daily challenge, they kind of did the first daily challenge of the season was very similar to this as well, where they were carrying something together.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
it just there's a redundancy of like I keep seeing the same skill set tested over and over and over again. And so it's really boring and underwhelming.
Well, I continuously, for many seasons now, have thought, why do we not have Not So Fast anymore? I can imagine that is not expensive to have as an elimination. Like, there's got to be a rope hanging around. You've got to have somebody who can weld some bars together around. It's likely cheaper than some of the dailies you do. And I think that could have been fun to see. But I'm going to start with my complaints for sure. It's 50-50, like you said. Like, it's basically illegitimate. And yes, there were times you could tell when somebody was lying. But also, they weren't asking yes or no questions at times. And by that, I mean Steve and Adam. And you were supposed to answer. Steve and Adam weren't answering some of them. It was funny. Like, I know there's going to be some people who watch it and laugh, and like that's great, and I love it. But it just highlighted how dumb that section was. I mean, even Nani said in confessional, "I hate that this is funny because like this is a huge deal to like both of our games."
It was it was a shitty way to go out, and knowing that like Turbo and Nani were then at a 1-ball disadvantage just from the start. Like just have the two teams play on an even playing field. It wasn't like that game they were playing was like super skill based or strategy based. Like it was also out of 5 rounds, so one team had more shots than the other to guess. So if it was out of 6 rounds, maybe. But even then, there was 9 Turbo had a 1-ball disadvantage, which I'm glad that Steve and Adam won. Steve and Adam win the elimination, and they won by about a 2.5-ball, 2-ball margin. So if they had won by 1 ball, that 1-ball difference would have, I mean, literally been what we've been talking about this entire episode. Luckily, they won by enough to where we don't have to complain about it. But if it had it been, would have been a big issue.
Yeah, I agree. And I would have liked to have seen Nani win a season. Zoe clocked it pretty early on, and she doesn't keep up with spoilers, but just that the edit was not getting that Nani and Turbo were winning. But in my heart, I always tell myself, maybe this is her chance. Maybe this is her chance. But if it gets down to it and Steve and Adam do win the whole season, as much as I don't want a male team to win the whole season, they have, and I know you're going to talk about this, but like they've done something that very few people have done on this show.
Yeah, 5 elimination wins. They've tied the all-time record with Sarah Grayson, Weston Casey, Horacio. Chris Underwood won 4.
Yeah, I don't think he won 5.
So they've tied that record, which is very impressive. It's also crazy that we've seen it twice in the last few years after it not happening for 15 years. And fun fact, Steve and Adam were on the season where Sarah Grayson set the record in 2004.
Yeah, and that's cool. And I think what's even more impressive about this for them, I mean, maybe it's bad gameplay because they got thrown into 5 eliminations, but they won 5 of the 10 eliminations of the season. Like, that's pretty powerful.
Was there 10?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Damn, that's crazy. I mean,
Oh, maybe they
or
were
no,
just
not. I
not.
think 9 actually. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Then that's an even better testament.
I mean, they are clearly a very strong team, but it's one of those hard things to talk about because they are a dual male team, and so a lot of these eliminations they've been at a big advantage, and it's it's so tough because I mentioned Chris Underwood like a minute ago. Chris Underwood, when he got voted in all those eliminations, he won them all, won the last daily challenge to secure his safety, and then won USA 2 for what I think is one of the most impressive wins we've ever seen. And
Agreed.
they follow a similar path, but because they're going against these dual female co-ed teams, especially with some of them that don't have the strongest players, it's hard to get super hyped up about it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Especially to be hyped up for a 2-part finale.
What do you want from this final?
Well, checkpoint can't happen just based on like the teams and their skill sets. I honestly don't know because I'm trying to think back. Okay, I did like the All Stars 1 final. But I guess they'd have to have rotating partner. Well, they wouldn't have to have rotating partners, but I thought that was good, the point system. But it was still like a checkpoint. I honestly don't know, Alan. Like I don't know what I want to see Melissa and Nicole face off against with Frank and Sam, and then Steve and Adam, and then Devon and Shane, because it feels like it's clear who's going to win everything.
Yeah, and I know like we all walked out of like All Stars 4 complaining about like, oh, the way these stars were unbalanced and yada yada yada. If we had a final that was similar to All Stars 4, I wouldn't hate it as long as we just didn't have the whole stars affecting everything. If it's not super physical and maybe anyone could win, because other than that, I don't see any way these teams can compete with Adam and Steve.
Yeah, I agree. But then it makes me think, well, that would never happen. I almost said like, well, what if it is totally equalized and like Melissa and Nicole won? It wouldn't matter. They could literally throw the million or 500,000 in front of them and be like, or 300, whatever it is, and be like, you have to figure out what 9 times 6 is. And I still think the other teams would still beat them, like doing an
Yeah,
entire final.
yeah. So let's just end this off with being like, all right, we think Melissa and Nicole are going to come in fourth.
Um, I do actually. Yeah.
No, so Zoe has been very much in the mindset of Sam and Frank are the worst team, and I wish she was here so we could just ask her this final week, because especially after this daily challenge win, would she still take Melissa and Nicole over Frank and Sam?
I think that she would, and I will give my rationale because I do think because it is a final, there is going to be some level of cardio, like more than the dailies. And if that is the case, Sam can't keep up with Melissa and Nicole. So that's why I said I think with that being my choice, I would have Frank and Sam and Nicole and Melissa interchangeable maybe, but I also can see a world where Sam and Frank win the whole thing. It's so hard because you're right. We don't even know what it's going to look like.
Yeah, if Frank and Sam pull off this win and Sam is a 2 for 2 2-time champion, that would be crazy.
It would be insane. I mean, to join the ranks of the women that are 2-time champs, uh, I would tip my hat to her just
And
slightly.
enjoying the ranks of people who've done back-to-back wins, which is like 5 women ever, I think, or like 3 or 4. It's like there's not many who've ever done it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're also walking away with the fact that Sam has gone through 2 challenge seasons regardless now without ever being eliminated.
Yep. Yeah. Well, it's like Michelle Fitzgerald on Survivor. It's like she's never been voted out. And I'm sure the pool for the challenge is larger, people who have never been eliminated for multiple seasons, but it honestly can't be that big.
Is Michelle going to be on season 50?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
So
think Jeff is getting. I don't think she was even called because I think that she's definitely a challenge girl now. And Jeff has said many times how he feels about people doing other shows.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
he's going to make some exceptions, but I don't think Michelle is going to be an exception for him.
Well, we like her better anyway.
Yeah, I love Michelle.
Um, I almost went on this like tangent. Like, all right, I know we're talking about the final, but let's talk about these entitled CBS people.
Please.
Should we have Shane and
Literally,
Devon as second?
I hope so. Well, I want them to win. And I honestly, before this episode, really did think that they could beat. Why are these names all going together in my head? Steve and Adam. But I think this episode highlighted how little or how much they don't work well together. And I think we definitely got that for a reason. I think that could cost them the game. And even me saying that, I'm lying to myself. I think that Steve and Adam are winning the whole thing. Like, I don't see how they can't.
I don't think Devon really has the skills for a final because she's asthmatic. And if there's any swimming portion, we know she can't swim. Um,
I
I
still think back to World of Worlds 1 when I think Devon was wrongfully purged because she did make it further than Maddie Bro based on what we saw. And people like, she was robbed of the final. Like, what if she'd have won? She would have been the first person to DQ because she's asthmatic and was not in great shape then.
I will defend her. Georgia DQ'd rapidly fast because she tried to keep up with Turbo and Theo. She tried to keep up with Theo's Olympic sprinting level, and she
Yeah.
just. Which to this day I think that if there was a male and a female winner of that final, Georgia would have actually stayed through it, but because she was trying to compete with the men, boom, was out fast.
It's a great point. Miss her. Hope she's well. Wish she'd come back.
Yeah, she just pops up on something recently, right?
She did Love Island All Stars, the first season of it.
Yeah, and I think she's doing like another thing too, or something I saw recently. But
I think she is, yeah.
love to see her back. One of my top two George Harrisons ever. And then Adam and Steve, number one, obviously the favorites to win. If they win, I'll actually be happy because they had the hardest path.
And to add to that, I hate it for Steve because on All Stars 4, if he had not made a mistake in how he like delegated his stars to that final, I see a clear path where he would have won. And I only say that because in my head, I'm like, he would have won if he'd done it correctly. It might have been closer than I thought, but I just feel like he probably lives with regret about how that season ended. So I could love that a little bit.
Well, I'd say that like I regret that he did that. Well, I my relationship with Laurel is not great these days. I was happy that Laurel won that season because I do think she deserves the title of two-time champion because she's one of the greatest to ever play the game. Fuck her now. One of the greatest to ever play the game. If her or Cara had won, would have been that was the best outcome for the season. There is part of me though that wish that Steve had gotten the title of champion from that season so that he wouldn't be so boring this season.
That's the downside here. It's like I would rather have Sam and Frank, who have been like pretty vocal about this season. I would rather have them win just because they've done something. And I know that Steve and Anna have done something in terms of athleticism. They've won dailies, they've won 5 eliminations. But I feel like we've been Adam heavy and Steve has just been there. Well, I don't even feel that. I know that to be true. And that's it's very boring to me.
Yeah, Adam is like, I mean, he's been in the star role, he's been prominent, he's been online, he's been doing everything you need. So green check marks to Adam all across the board. Steve, he's just been so locked in on winning that he's not giving us good TV. And yeah, because when he first popped up on All Stars 2, I loved his personality where he's just like he was kind of just checking the status quo of like, oh, so we just don't vote in Derek because he has a podcast. No, I'm gonna make fun of his shirt and vote him in.
Made me laugh very hard. But yeah, he's definitely off that. And we say this often on this podcast, and I stand by it. When people play boring games, we hate it as viewers, but it is probably indicative of a good game because they're not causing ripples. But it just sucks as a viewer because, and I think that you might share the same sentiment, if I had to choose who I wanted to win, it would be Shane and Devon. Because Shane is OG. He represents like a type of competitor that we just don't get anymore. He really loves this game. I think another win for the Lavender Ladies would be phenomenal. And for Devon to win, she is, and I'm not even being biased here. I think Devon 15 years from now, people look back like she's one of the best people to do reality TV. What she has brought to pop culture, even in just like the memes that have come out about her and like how she can carry a storyline, not so much this season, but she's phenomenal. And I would love for her to get a win because I know that she doesn't have a buku of shows ahead of her. I hope she does, but it just would be beautiful. And Adam's already a champ. I love new champs. And if two new champs could be Devon and Shane, a gay man and a black woman who we sparsely have any of in our champ pool, would be phenomenal.
I'm about to say something that might make some people mad, but like I'm gonna say it. I think Devon is kind of like the Coral for generation, where she has such a cultural impact, she has such a strong fan base behind her, and she means so much to so many people that, like as you said, in 15 years we're gonna be looking back at stuff she did as being like almost as iconic as Coral. I mean, there's the gif of her walking out the Big Brother house that's been turned into cartoon memes and stuff like that. It's like she's historic in her own way already.
Yeah. And I think there will be people who get mad about that. But I think when you contextualize everything, you're spot on that like she is she is reality TV of like the 2010s
Yeah.
early like yeah. So I'm with you.
Well, we got a final next week and the week after that.
Please.
I want to say this: if next week is a part one of the final and it's a really bad episode and it's just really boring, it doesn't say anything, but I just have no desire to summarize. Oh, and then they ran to this checkpoint, and then they ran to eat the gross food. We will be here to, if it's a good episode and if it's a good part of the final, we'll be here to review it. And if it's just, if the final is just one episode next week, we're definitely reviewing it. But if not, we might take a week off because it might not be the most necessary recap ever.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that Zoe is somewhere in the ether saying, I agree too. But if it's great, we'll do it.
Yeah. Make sure to subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or get the podcast. Have a great weekend, everyone.